Hello and welcome to the Healthy Business Podcast. I am super excited today because I have the lovely Ruth Kudzi joining me, who is CEO of Optimus Coaching Academy. She's a coach, she's a trainer, she's an all-round lovely lady who I've known, probably for a couple of years now, I think, haven't we?
Right.
So thank you so much for joining me, Ruth. I'm excited to be talking to you today.
I'm really excited to be here as well.
Oh, it's always lovely to actually have conversations with people, I think, and in this online wonderful social media world that we live in and kind of connecting, but actually having real conversations is for me what it's all about. So yeah, I'm excited to see where we go today. We haven't really got a bit of a plan, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes up, but I think those are always the most interesting conversations. And one question that I love to start with is, what does a healthy business mean to you?
I think for me, a healthy business has to be one where you're in alignment. So it has to feel good. Now, when I'm saying this, that doesn't mean that it feels good every second of every day, but generally that you're excited by it, that you're motivated by it, that you're engaged with it, because that's kind of from the emotional health and well-being. If we're running businesses that we're running really because we just want to make money, it can feel really soul destroying. So I think it's about having that passion and that engagement with what you do. As well, it's a business that pays you. I mean, we see all of these figures online, don't we? 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs. But actually, the most important thing is your income. And I think that people get into this, revenue is this, profit is this. And it's like, no, it's your income, it's your take-home pay, and it's what you can do with that. That's the important thing. You want a business where you know that you're going to be able to sustain you and your family or whoever else is going to be there. Now, of course, at the beginning, you're probably not going to be earning what you were maybe earning in a job. So it's about understanding, okay, when do I need to have that money coming in? And, like how much, how am I going to make this work? But yeah, it needs to pay you. It needs to be engaging. And I think, and this is one that I've really learned, it needs to be something you can switch off from as well, because it's not healthy to be 24/7. It's not healthy to need to work weekends. We may sometimes want to and do things, but it's not healthy to be working every day. So yeah, it's about your emotional engagement. It's about the money, and it's also about being boundaried. Because if you want a healthy business, for me, that's a sustainable business, and a sustainable business is, again, over those three things. And if we're working all the time, or if we're not actually earning money from our business and we need to be, that's going to create stress, and it's not going to be sustainable. So it's really about understanding what you need the business to do for you too.
So true. Yeah, this really speaks to me. And I think for me, it has to be that double-edged side of things. You've got to have the profitability, the sustainability. It's got to be a long-lasting business, having that money coming in, that regular cash flow. But it has to be, you have to have that passion in there. You have to be excited about your business. And all of that comes from that alignment word that you said right at the beginning. And it's mixing those two together. When you can turn your passions into profit and still take time out of your business that enables you to live life in the way that you want to, that for me that's what we're all striving for, isn't it? Of having that real healthy business that gives us that flexibility, the freedom that we want to. And we can't do that if we're not getting the regular money coming in, which, a lot of people don't like talking about money, but actually as business owners, we have to fundamentally talk about money, because that's what makes it a business rather than an expensive hobby. And, that pays the bills. And especially as you're growing your business and you're looking at having a team, and, that requires money to pay for those people as well.
It does indeed. It requires money to pay for them. And it also requires you to plan, and you to know that, okay, I've got this money coming out. I need to have this much money, and really understanding your numbers and your figures is so important. Because if you've got people as a team, and we're in the state, I think we've got 20 people who are on our payroll. Now, some of those people are not, some of those people are they're on they're trainers, and because of IR35, they're on 0 hours contracts, which always makes me think of like Sports Direct. But obviously, you know, we pay them for when they work. But you know, we have to pay all of those people on the 28th of every month. So we have to know that we've got the money to pay for those people. And I just think it's, you know, it is about planning. It's about understanding of numbers. It's about cash flow. It's about all of those things. I used to actually teach accountancy. I studied accountancy at uni, and I must admit, I didn't go to many of the lectures. But understanding that, you know, you have to hit those, you have to look at your numbers and really make friends with them. I've got quite a on it accountant. That's what I say. She's very, very much on it. And she just, you know, like, where are you spending your money? What is essential? And how much money do you want to take home? And what are your goals? And, you know, I agree with you that we're taught about, like, there's a big divide, isn't there, online, about either people talk about money the whole time, or people don't talk about money, and then people are judged for whatever they do or don't do.
Yeah.
And really, it's about your personal choice. But actually, business is about giving you more choices, or I think it is giving you more choices about how you live your life, about what you want to do, all of those things. And that's what makes it really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there is huge power in just having an understanding of those numbers, but also having that clarity, because, you know, you can make all these plans, but actually, if you've got goals that you need to hit or people that you need to pay, you've got to make sure you've got that money coming in. And it is a, you know, it's a key foundational cornerstone of a business, is making sure that that money is flowing. And you're right, it's up to you whether you talk about that or not, but understanding that from a behind the scenes perspective is something that I think a lot of people do shy away from, unfortunately, because that's not why they went into business. They've gone into business because they want to help people, but actually you can help a lot more people if you know what your money is, because then, as you said, you can kind of have that real plan. I'd love to kind of delve into, because obviously over the last few years, you've massively grown your business and started employing more people. And I think it'd be really useful to kind of have that. The word scale is different for different people and growth is different for different people. But I think just hearing your story would be really interesting to see how relatively quickly you've gone from, you know, being in the teaching world to actually moving into the coaching space, and then, you know, having quite quick growth in relative terms.
Yeah. I mean, so 6 years ago, I decided that I was going to set up my business. So, and it was very much done from, you know, I've been coaching for years within my role. I was a senior leader at secondary school, and I've been coaching, doing lots of leadership coaching, both within my organization, but also outside. I've been coaching at the National College of School Leadership, which doesn't exist anymore, but I've been doing some stuff with them and some other programs. So I knew that I wanted to be a coach. I knew that I loved it, but I really didn't know. And this is ironic, because I was actually a business teacher. I really didn't know that much about the online world. So I made the choice to start up my business. And I got my first paying client. So I talk about that as probably being my first, really, when I properly started in April the next year, so April 2016. And, you know, it was such a huge learning curve because it was so different, but I had a really strong motivation. I was pregnant at that time with my second daughter. And I knew, because I'm quite good at looking into the future, I knew that I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be doing the job that I was doing. Because when they were little, it was okay, like they could be at nursery if they wanted to from 7:30 to 6 p.m, which I wouldn't have wanted to do. But when they got older, I realized that there's no way I could ever drop them off or pick them up and do my job. And I remember actually asking my head teacher at the time if he would consider like flexible working, if he considered like, you know, maybe I could come in, like, you know, do 2 half days. So do 4 days, but do 2 half days a week. And it was just a straight no. And really, I'm glad that it was, because it was for me, it was like, I'd had this career for 12 years. I'd done really well. I was a really young deputy head teacher. I was early 30s. but I knew that I didn't want to become a head teacher. And so that was meant to be my trajectory. And then I was like, So coming into the online world was very, very different. I dallied in businesses before, but this was, completely different. So definitely a lot of growth. I didn't work full time in my business for the first year. I was kind of on maternity leave and working. And then I kind of was doing like 3.5 days a week for, I think, the second year. And I was really focusing on coaching. And I think it took me about a year. I was doing one-to-ones, and I was doing some online programs, like online courses. And then I added a membership, which I just closed yesterday. So I did that for 4 years. And then I had I did like masterminds. I did masterminds for about 3 years. I did a group program. So I did all of these different things. And definitely it was like evolving when I was evolving. But I had this thing in my head. What you're really good at is training and teaching. And the coach training industry in the UK, there's definitely a gap. And I knew that from being in it. So about 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to start a second business. I've got my coaching business. I'm doing, that's doing well. It's, I've got consistent clients. I've got consistent income. I had a full-time assistant, and I have various other people working for me, like social media and, designers and stuff. And I was like, right, I'm going to do a second business. And so in 2019, I started a training business. And I'd always thought that it was going to be a hybrid, online and offline. So we're going to start offline, and then we're going to do online. And then we met in March 2020, the beginning of March. And then obviously the whole world closed down.
The world of COVID hit, right?
The world of COVID hit. But that was a really interesting time, actually, because I was training people to become coaches, and so many of them were like, this is actually the best thing that we could be doing right now. And I think it was, that business has just grown and grown to the extent that I've chosen right now to take a step back from my coaching business. Because I was saying at the beginning, like, for me, I love coaching and I know I will continue to do coaching, but I had too many things. And what I realized is now I need to be a leader again. Now I need to manage my team. I've actually got 2 directors in the business, marketing director, who just happens to be Mr. Kudzi, but also I've got a coach training director. He manages all the training and the trainers and all of that thing. But I need to give them time. And I was just finding that when I was doing the coaching business and the training business, my time was getting really squeezed, and I didn't want to be not able to show up for clients. So I think when you're scaling, there's so many things, like there's so many ways to do it. And I remember I was in a program for about nearly 2 years with a great guy, and he always used to say, you should, if you want to get to a £1 million business or $1 million business or whatever, you should focus on one thing. And I remember just being like, oh yeah, whatever, even though there were so many examples in front of me of people who did that and were successful. I was like, no, I'm going to continue doing lots of things. And obviously I wasn't ready to hear at that point that was the best way to do it. Yeah. And that's definitely, what I found that's worked for me. So really simplifying what you do. And that's kind of my message now. Like, how can we make things easier? How can we make things more simple? And really just focus on what we're really, really good at. And so that's meant, cutting off income streams, closing a membership, closing my mastermind, taking a step back from things and getting really specific about, okay, what's going to really make the difference in the business and what's going to be really exciting. Because for me, the coach training is exciting because I then see like this ripple effect of people do the coach training and then they go out, they change, they transform, and then they go out and they help other people. And that for me is one of the most powerful things that I think I can do. And I think that that's my purpose. So it's definitely taken like, 5.5 years to be like, yeah, this is really it. And lots of other things were good and I enjoyed them. But then it's all learning and it's all development. And it's all like, okay, well, where do I want to go next? And actually, what's going to use my skills in the best way?
Yeah, it's so interesting, I think, isn't it? There's so many different bits that I could kind of pull out of that. I think, taking that sort of leadership, that CEO approach of actually taking that step back, looking at your business holistically and kind of going, actually, this is what's going to excite me. This is what the world needs. This is how I can have the impact, the ripple effect. But also, I think the word you used was exciting. And it is about having, we can evolve our businesses however we want to. That is the exciting bit of running our own business, is that we can all follow a journey that is our own. It's our unique journey. And trying to follow what other people are doing goes out of alignment because it doesn't work. You have to feel it inside. Everyone has a different version of success. Everyone's got different goals because they've got different financial needs, different lifestyle setups, different family setups. And that, for me, is running a business means that you get to choose how you do that, and how quickly you do that, again, depends on how much you need it, how much you want it. But also, I think you have to go through that journey. You have to find which bits you do enjoy doing or which bits you don't enjoy doing. Plus, also, I think the bit that, that you spoke about is that the world changes. And if you do what you're always doing, it's that wonderful phrase, isn't it? If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. But you recognizing that need, that COVID happened, your business can adapt to help even more people. But also, you'd already put that in place because you are a future thinker, forward thinker, however you want to call it. And I think, but it all came from you, your heart, your passions of what you're good at, what you enjoy doing. And you created that business that feels in alignment. And I think that, for me, is so interesting. But also for those listeners thinking, oh, something's not fitting right, but I'm always being told to do it in this way. Go back to what you enjoy doing. Go back to, the stuff that you actually really love to do, because marketing can be done in so many different ways. Your products and services can be done in so different ways. But actually, that alignment piece, that leadership piece, a combination of that, I think, is what really enables people to scale, enables people to grow their businesses. I've had a big shift of kind of my business, and I'm so excited about it again. And not that I wasn't excited, but I think you can get stuck following a path sometimes, and it's not until something happens that you then really reassess things, or force yourself to have a check-in with yourself and kind of go, actually, I can do it however I want to.
Yeah, it's that self-trust piece, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I think that we come into the setting up our businesses for various different reasons, but often we then are like, we see other people being successful, or who that we believe are successful, and then we're like, oh, have they done this, or have they done that, or then it makes a big difference when we're actually, rather than they've done that, reframing it to, they've done that, how would that work for me? And how do I know that that's actually what I want to be doing? And I think that's a key thing as well. It's like, one of the things that I did, I think like about 2 years ago, is I just stopped following loads of people on Facebook. And I don't really go on my Facebook feed, because I find that you can just get, first of all, I found it quite triggering. I found it made me a bit anxious, because I found at that point, and actually I've seen this again recently, that a lot of people are quite like, there's quite a lot of like negativity there.
Yes.
And I find that really difficult, because then it gets you into that, oh my gosh, well, if I post this, someone might disagree. And I'm like, I just don't want to be in that energy. I'm not available for that. But also, there's people celebrating, which I completely think, great, celebrate, but it isn't always helpful to us when we're looking at it, because we're like, oh, well, maybe we should do that. Maybe we need to have like a high ticket offer, or this or that, or this, or a membership, but we don't. And I think the more that we acknowledge that we can do it our way and trust ourselves, the more it's going to make a difference for us.
It's such a huge part is mindset, isn't it? And just in that, going into that self-trust, that self-belief, the growth mindset that we were talking about before we came online actually and started recording, of, actually just being open to change, being open to evolving and trusting that process is the right way. And I know that's easier said than done. So I know lots of listeners will be like, okay, fine. It's easy when you've got to a certain financial income that you can trust that. But actually, you're going to be much more aligned. It goes back to that alignment again, doesn't it? Of actually, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you show up in the ways that you want to, and you're serving the people that excite you and that you get the most from, they're going to get the results that you want them to, and so are you. And that's when that kind of cyclical thing happens in a positive way, rather than feeling drained by things, whether that's product, services, or even clients. Then yeah, it has that sort of ripple effect that you want it to, and the impact that you want it to. So yeah, no, it's lots of big learnings there, I think.
Yeah, loads of learning. And it's always learning. Like, this is the whole thing, the growth mindset. And for me, this is like it's the center of coaching. It's the center of everything, which is that we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always evolving. If we apply that to every area of our lives, then everything changes. And we're like, yeah, maybe I made that decision there because that was the information I had and that's where I was. But actually, I can use all of that learning from that decision which maybe didn't work out in a new way. And I think that we have got so much that we can do if we start to apply our learning, listen to our intuition, tap into what our body's telling us as well as what our mind's telling us. All of those things that we can listen to that will make us make better decisions and be more effective as a business owner and be happier. We just need to listen.
Yeah, we do. And listen to ourselves rather than necessarily to what everyone else is kind of doing or showing us on social media as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I kind of wanted to pick up on there was that kind of happiness and feeling happy inside as well, because it is hard when you're running your own business, especially if you're on your own and you're before that point of kind of really scaling, of feeling like you are working on your business all the time, but you aren't able to take that time out. And how would you encourage people to move into that space of boundaries, is the word that you used as well, of kind of setting those boundaries that creates that happiness but still allows you to grow?
So what I would say is, even if it's just you, this is going to sound a bit crazy, even if it's only you, I would really consider, really consider having a meeting with yourself every single week as if you're the CEO, and going through like what's worked, what hasn't, where have you been successful, what have you learned, and start to give yourself that time where you can start to look at your business and be analytical. And I would include in those meetings, I would look at your quarterly plan, having a quarterly plan. So, every quarter, what's my goal? What do I want to achieve? I always do like, how do I want to feel? What needs to be different? I love doing visualization. So I love stepping to the end of the quarter and like really reflecting on where I am and what I've learned, because I think that really helps, and it builds a new neural pathway as well. So you start to believe that you can do it, and that's building a neural pathway. But equally, have your yearly plan and review it. Like actually sit down and look at it, and look at how you're spending your time. And in those meetings as well, be really honest with yourself. Okay, well, let's look at my stats. Like I've spent 3 hours on Facebook this week. I've got no leads from Facebook. Okay, so what have I been doing that has been effective and intentional? And if you can do this, the thing is that if you can be really intentional about looking at how you spend your time and having that weekly meeting with yourself, then it's going to give you more space for creativity. And I would say as well, around boundaries, being really clear about when you do and don't work. So I've got an assistant now, Sonia, and I'm really clear. So I don't start work until 9:30, which means I can go for a run or a walk every day after dropping my kids off. And then there's I finish work at 3 o'clock. 3 days a week, unless there's something really significant. You know, if there was like, I've been asked to speak at something, or then we'd look at that. But she knows that's where it is. And then sometimes I do evening work, but you know, it's about being really clear. And then this time is time for X, and this time isn't. And so then if you know that, then you can say yes or no to decisions. And I'm going to speak to the people at the beginning here, because I learned this. So at the beginning, I've already said, like, I was basically on maternity leave at the beginning, but working. And I remember somebody said they really wanted to meet me for coffee, and they couldn't speak to me on the phone, and they wouldn't tell me what it's about. So I went to meet them for coffee, and I used to live in South London. So it took me about 45 minutes to get there. It was raining loads. I then couldn't find anywhere to park. I find stuff like that really stressful. Cortisol levels were really high, I'm sure. Ended up getting a parking ticket, went and met her for coffee. Basically, she wanted a business like mine, and she wanted me to tell her for free about how I'd done it. Okay, fine. But I'd spent all of that time and energy getting there, and then I'd driven home, and that was, you know, all in all, my daughter was in nursery for 4 hours, and that was basically all I did that day. Now, that wasn't that lady's fault. It was my fault for not having boundaries. It was my fault for saying, yes, I'll come and meet you, without you telling me what it's about. No, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to come and meet you unless you tell me what you want to talk about. And equally, can we have a phone call or a Zoom call first? And that was just a massive learning for me. And I think as well, at the beginning, you know, you get really nervous, don't you, that if you don't work all the hours, your clients are going to go with someone else. But I just don't think that's true. If your clients want to work with you, they will work with you. And, you know, we just tell ourselves these stories, don't we?
Yeah, that was one of my trigger points as well, actually, when I met someone for a coffee and then turned into them wanting a kind of a business strategy session. And I was like, oh, big learning for me. But I think you're right. And actually, I think we feel like we need to justify things as well, don't we? And we feel like we need to justify our hours. And I think it's almost taking that ownership, that leadership role again of going, actually, these are the hours that I'm working, or these are the hours that I'm available. You don't have to say what else you're doing outside of those hours, but you could give them some alternatives and say, look, I can see you or speak to you during this time, but I can't do during X, Y, and Z time. And you don't need to justify that. That's the time you're available to speak to them. And I think if we get more into that kind of mindset, yes, but actually from a boundary setting perspective, and not only do you feel more comfortable with your business, you get more out of it, they get more out of it because you're at your highest energy levels. And it has that kind of, it has the trickle effect, because then actually you then attract those people who respect those boundaries, that aren't going to message you at 10 o'clock at night and expect an answer straight away, because they already know that you don't work at that time, or that you won't respond. And I think the moment we start responding, then people expect you to then carry on responding, and then they get out of sync because they're like, well, you responded to me once at that time, why are you not doing that all the time? So I think it's that consistency, but also, as you said, it then gives you that choice to say yes or no to things. That there will be times that we have to flex those boundaries. There will be times where we want to flex those boundaries and say yes to a speaking gig, or, you know, do a training in the evening because we've taken the day off to do something else. That's all okay. But I think you're right, it's having those, being strict with yourself, taking that business owner approach to things, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's interesting that replying, because again, I had a situation with a client, and again, this isn't about the client, where they used to message me a lot. And I used to find it really, really stressful, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, so, like they're messaging me so much. Now, what that taught me was actually I need to be really strict and explicit with, you know, when you can message me and how long it's going to take me to get back to you and all of those things, because otherwise, you know, I'm getting stressed out and it's not a good relationship. And it was a learning. It's always a learning. Everything that we do, we're learning as business people, and we're growing, and we're getting into stepping into like actually being business owners. And I think this is probably the whole thing, isn't it, of today, that it's about actually stepping into being a business owner, not only running a business.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. And what I loved there is you gave an example with your daughter being at nursery. And one of the things that, we hear this phrase work-life balance being bandied around so much. But for me as a business owner, it's not a balance between the two, because when you're running your own business, your work is part of your life, and it's life. It's not a balance between work and life. It is life, and your work is part of that. And that's where those boundaries bits comes in really, really key, because you have to enjoy what you're doing. It goes back to this passion again, doesn't it? Feeling excited about what you're doing, running your business in a way that enables you to still live your life in the way that you want to, have those flexibility, being able to keep those boundaries, but not work when you don't want to work, but do work when you do want to, with the people that you want to, and taking that time out. One of the things you spoke about was actually learning how to switch off from your business and not working all the hours, not working weekends if you don't want to. And yeah, it's all a choice. I think that's the big thing that's coming through here.
It is all a choice, definitely.
Yeah. So important, so important. Is there anything, so obviously, we've covered quite a lot today around, stepping into that role as a business owner, that leadership, having boundaries, what it's taken you to scale your business. Is there anything that you've learned other than that, of kind of saying yes to things, or, you mentioned about closing memberships, closing off income streams? Those are big decisions. What have you learned about either yourself or about even other people that have kind of, as you've been growing and you had to essentially cut off income streams, that has enabled you to actually grow even more within your business?
I think that when you make a decision to stop doing something, I think it's absolutely okay. And I've definitely had pushback before where people are like, okay, you've changed your mind. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay to change your mind and evolve. I think as long as you communicate with people, it frees up your time. And you have to really think, what is going to move me forward? Because if you're doing something that isn't, why are you doing that? What is making you stay in that place? And that's so important for us. So it's really about looking at what you're doing, and what you're doing that you're probably doing because you think that you need to do, but it's not exciting you. And a lot of that is about tuning in and taking time away, and like looking at, a great activity actually. I did with my leadership coach Alice, is she got me to do like a circle, like a pie, and it's called Perfect Pie, and look at where I was spending my time, and then do the perfect one and look at where I was spending my time. And that was really interesting, because I was like, oh, okay, like, what can I do about these things where I'm spending my time that I don't want to be doing? Is it about boundaries? Is it about delegation? And is it about support? So there was a lot of stuff going on there. And I think what I did is I then took that to my team and got them to do it. And so we're changing the way that we all work as a team by really looking at, okay, what are people doing, and what do they want to be doing, and what can we just get rid of? And I think that that's a really powerful exercise for people to do as well.
I love that. I might try that myself. It's so interesting. But I think giving yourself permission to say no, to stop doing things as well. Because I think sometimes, especially as we are growing our business and we have started doing something when we first started or quite early on in our business, we feel like we need to keep doing that because we have always done it, or we don't want to let people down, but again, it's taking that ownership approach, that leadership approach of, it's your business. What is it that you're enjoying about it? And if you're not enjoying it, or if something is feeling draining, or whatever it is that's feeling slightly negative, look at why that is, and look at either stopping it or shifting it into something that does feel more in alignment. I love that. Perfect Pie. I'm going to look into that more.
Yeah, it's a fab activity.
Amazing. Okay. So what I'd love to do is just to kind of wrap it up, because it's been an amazing conversation of so many different things. If you were to give some tips for our listeners of, as you're scaling, as you're growing, taking that leadership approach, what would those tips be? I mean, we've covered lots today, but what would you sort of sum up as kind of some key tips for people?
Be honest with yourself about where you're spending your time. Get a good accountant. look at what's going on in the industry and then think about how you can do it in a different way. So I'm very much about, okay, right, let's look at what's going on. How can I solve this problem in a different way? Don't be afraid for something not to work, because with all of the things that don't work, you're going to find out what does work. And I would say, like, have some fun, even things like getting new team members, get your job descriptions, interview them. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you'll learn. You'll learn more the more that you do. So, don't be afraid of failing.
Amazing. And I think from that is, don't stay static, keep learning, keep evolving, keep looking at what you're doing, because that's when you're going to get the growth and enjoyment. Fun is a big word that, running your own business should be fun. That's the whole point of doing it, that you're not constrained by someone else's boundaries.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for joining me. It's been a brilliant conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find you if they wanted to connect with you? What's the best place to find you?
So my name is quite distinctive. I think I'm the only Ruth Kudzi, so it's Kudzi. So I'm that across all the social media personally, and then it's Optimus Coach Academy, and that's what it says on the tin. We're that across social media as well.
Fabulous. Ruth, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast and getting a huge amount of learning from it, and not being afraid to look at ways of growing and scaling your business. Ruth, thank you. I will speak to you very soon, no doubt. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.